The desert sun was setting, draping the sheikh's mansion in molten gold. Inside, servants scurried nervously, preparing for an unexpected arrival. They whispered among themselves, stealing glances toward the driveway, where a modest old car rolled to a stop. From it stepped Amina, daughter of Sheikh Kareem, one of the wealthiest and most feared Arab billionaires. Her silk abaya shimmered under the fading light, her every step regal. But beside her walked someone no one expected, a boy in worn shoes, his posture humble, his eyes quietly observant. His name was Elias. The guards exchanged glances, the maids froze mid-step. A ripple of shock passed through the household. "Who is he?" one of the servants whispered, clutching her tray. "A guest of Lady Amina," another answered nervously. "A poor boy? Here? In the sheikh's house?" Inside the marble hall, the tension thickened as Amina led Elias past chandeliers and carved columns. The boy kept his eyes down, overwhelmed by the grandeur. But Amina walked beside him proudly, as though daring the world to judge. They sat at the long dining table. Crystal glasses gleamed, silver cutlery sparkled. The staff served them silently, glancing nervously at the door, for everyone knew the sheikh's temper. Amina, sensing Elias's unease, smiled warmly. "Don't worry, you're safe here." But Elias's gaze had already fallen on something that froze his breath in his chest. Around Amina's neck, resting delicately against her silk dress, hung a necklace. Its diamond pendant was carved with a symbol, an intricate crest, ancient and unmistakable. His hand trembled around his glass. His eyes widened as memories surged, nights reading his late mother's diary, her stories, of a love she never spoke aloud, and a sketch she had drawn of that very crest. The same crest now glittered on Amina's necklace. Elias's heart pounded. His throat went dry. The room seemed to close in around him. Amina noticed his stare and tilted her head curiously. "Elias, what's wrong?" He swallowed hard, his voice barely a whisper, but sharp enough to cut. Through the silence of the hall, "That necklace, where did you get it?" The question hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. Amina blinked in surprise, her fingers instinctively rising to touch the necklace. The servants, who were already uneasy at the boy's presence, froze completely. His tone had not been casual curiosity. It carried weight, almost accusation. "This?" Amina asked softly, eyes narrowing. "It was a gift from my father." "Why do you ask?" Elias's lips trembled as he tried to steady his voice. His pulse thundered in his ears, but he forced the words out. "I've seen that symbol before. Exactly the same, in my mother's diary." The clinking of cutlery stopped. Not a single servant dared to move. Amina leaned closer, confused. "Your mother's diary? What are you saying?" Elias lowered his gaze, clutching the edge of the table. His voice cracked with emotion. "My mother, she died when I was young. She was all I had. But she used to draw this symbol again and again. She said it belonged to a man who betrayed her, a man whose name she never revealed." The blood drained from Amina's face. Her hand gripped the pendant tighter. The door suddenly swung open. A booming voice cut through the air like thunder. "What is going on here?" Sheikh Kareem entered, his imposing figure filling the doorway. Draped in a white thobe, a golden watch glinting on his wrist, he carried the presence of a man who ruled both boardrooms and kingdoms. His eyes immediately fell on Elias. "And who," the sheikh growled, "is this boy sitting at my table?" Amina stood quickly, her heart pounding. "Father, this is Elias. He's my friend." The sheikh's gaze sharpened. "Your friend?" He stepped closer, studying Elias with disdain. "You dare bring a stranger, a poor boy, into this house? Do you know who I am? Do you know the insult this causes?" Elias slowly rose to his feet. His hands trembled, but his eyes burned with something stronger than fear. "I know exactly who you are," he said quietly, "and I think you knew my mother." The words struck like a lightning bolt. Amina gasped. The servants lowered their eyes, afraid of the sheikh's reaction. But for the first time in years, Sheikh Kareem's powerful composure faltered. His jaw clenched, and his gaze darted, not with rage but with recognition. The golden necklace between his daughter's fingers suddenly gleamed brighter in the dim light. A secret he had buried long ago was clawing its way back into the open. For a long, heavy moment, silence ruled the grand dining hall. The sheikh, a man known for his iron will and merciless tongue, simply stood frozen, his eyes fixed on the boy who dared challenge him. Amina looked from her father to Elias, her chest tightening. "Father, what is he talking about? Do you know his mother?" Sheikh Kareem's lips parted, but no words came. His fist clenched around the chair before him, knuckles turning white. For the first time, his power looked fragile. Elias took a step forward. His voice shook, but his words carried the weight of truth. "My mother's name was Layla. She worked as a translator, moving between cities, always in hiding. She never told me who my father was. Only this." He reached into his worn satchel and pulled out an old leather-bound diary. He placed it firmly on the table. The staff's eyes widened. Amina's breath caught. Opening the diary, Elias revealed sketches, the same intricate crest that shone on Amina's necklace. Page after page bore the symbol, drawn by a hand filled with longing and pain. "She told me it belonged to a man she loved, but who abandoned her." His eyes locked on the Sheikh's. "And that symbol is the same one you had engraved for your daughter." Amina's hand trembled as she looked at her necklace. Her lips parted in disbelief. "Father, is this true?" The Sheikh's mask finally cracked. His voice, low and heavy, escaped like a confession dragged from his soul. "Layla." The name alone shook Elias to his core. His suspicion had just turned into confirmation. "You do know her," Elias pressed, his anger rising. "You were the man in her story. You promised her a future and left her with nothing but pain. She died carrying that truth, and raising me alone until her last breath." Amina covered her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. She looked at her father, the man she thought she knew, and then at Elias, a boy who suddenly seemed tied to her family in ways she could not comprehend. The Sheikh staggered back a step, his powerful presence shrinking beneath the weight of memory and guilt. His empire, his reputation, all seemed meaningless against the ghost of the woman whose name still burned his lips. Elias's voice, though broken, echoed in the vast room. "You may have buried her, but you cannot bury me." The chandelier above seemed to flicker as though even the house itself held its breath. The air in the grand hall grew suffocating, as if the walls themselves pressed closer with every heartbeat. Amina stood frozen, her necklace glinting like a silent witness. The servants had quietly vanished into the shadows, unwilling to be caught in the storm about to erupt. Sheikh Kareem finally sank into his chair, the weight of Elias's accusation pressing down heavier than any crown he had ever worn. His face, usually sharp with authority, looked older, haunted. "I told myself I'd erase that part of my life," he muttered under his breath. His eyes darted to Elias, then to Amina. "But the past has a way of returning." Amina's voice cracked, trembling yet insistent. "Father, what are you saying? Who is this boy really? What are you hiding from me?" The Sheikh rubbed his temples, his golden watch catching the dim light. For the first time, he looked less like a billionaire ruler and more like a man cornered by his own sins. "I met Layla years ago," he began, his voice carrying both pride and regret. "She was brilliant, bold, unlike anyone I'd ever known. She worked for one of my companies. She could speak 5 languages, and she had a fire that even I could not tame. His words caught. "I loved her. Or at least, I thought I did." Elias's jaw tightened. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Then why did you abandon her?" He spat, his voice echoing with years of suppressed pain. "Why leave her to struggle, to raise me alone, to die with nothing?" The Sheikh's eyes flickered, a storm of guilt clouding his expression. "Because," he admitted, voice low, "my family, my name, could not bear such scandal. I was already engaged to Amina's mother. To reveal my affair with Layla would have destroyed everything. My empire, my reputation. I chose wealth and power over her." The words hung heavy in the air. Amina's heart sank as the truth carved into her soul. Her father, the man she admired, had built his empire on betrayal. Elias's voice trembled with rage and sorrow. "She gave up everything for you. She bore your child. She believed in your promises. And when she needed you most, you let her die alone." The Sheikh's hands shook. His mighty aura shattered further as he whispered, "I never knew about you. She never told me." Elias stepped forward, his eyes blazing. "She didn't tell you because she still loved you, even after what you did. She protected your name, while you destroyed hers." Amina clutched her necklace, tears streaming down her face. She could no longer look at her father without seeing the shadow of his betrayal. The room fell silent again, But this time it was not the silence of power, it was the silence of shame, and Elias knew. This was only the beginning of the reckoning. Elias's hands trembled as he shoved the diary closer to the sheikh. Its worn pages spilling open like wounds that had never healed. The ink was faded, the paper brittle, but every word screamed louder than the silence between them. "Read it," Elias demanded, his voice sharp, echoing against the marble walls. "Every night she wrote about you, about the promises you made, about the future she believed in, and every night, her words ended in tears, because you never came back." Amina flinched at the fury in his voice. She had never seen anyone speak to her father this way. To most, Sheikh Kareem was untouchable, feared like a king. But now, this boy, poor and scarred by the past, was tearing through his armor like it was paper. The sheikh hesitated, but his trembling fingers reached for the diary. His eyes scanned the familiar loops of Layla's handwriting. Memories he had buried deep clawed their way back into his chest. Her laughter, her fiery debates, her soft touch, and then, the last time he saw her, the moment he turned away, his throat tightened. He slammed the diary shut, his hands shaking. Enough, but Elias would not stop. His voice cut like a blade. Enough. You think you can bury the truth with money and power? You think ignoring it will make it disappear? You abandoned her, and now you sit on your throne while people like me grow up in the shadows of your sins. Amina stepped forward, her voice breaking. "Father, please, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you're not the man who let a woman die for the sake of reputation." The sheikh looked at his daughter, his jewel, his pride, and for the first time in his life, he could not meet her gaze. His silence was louder than confession. Elias's fury grew. He reached into his satchel again, pulling out folded letters. Layla's last writings, words she never had the courage to send. He spread them across the table like evidence in a trial. "She wrote these in her final days," Elias whispered, his voice cracking. "Letters to you. Letters she never mailed because she still wanted to protect your name. Even as she coughed blood, even as she starved to feed me, she still loved you. Do you understand that? She died with your name on her lips." The sheikh's chest heaved. His golden empire, his carefully polished image, suddenly seemed hollow. The chandelier above trembled from the storm of emotions brewing below it. And then Elias leaned in, his voice low but steady, the way a judge delivers a sentence. "You may have hidden me from the world, but you will never hide from me." Amina covered her mouth, her tears unstoppable. The mighty sheikh's world was unraveling, not from enemies in boardrooms or politics, but from the ghost of the woman he left behind, standing in flesh through her son. The sound of the letters hitting the marble table echoed like a gavel striking judgment. Elias stood tall, his chest rising and falling with raw fury. Amina sat trembling, caught between loyalty to her father and the undeniable truth staring back at her. The heavy doors of the dining hall creaked open again. 2 advisors, dressed in tailored suits, entered cautiously. They had been summoned earlier for a business meeting, unaware of the storm brewing inside. "Your Excellency," one of them began, bowing slightly, but his words trailed off the moment he saw the open diary, the scattered letters, and the boy standing defiantly before the sheikh. His eyes flickered between Amina's tear-stained face and the sheikh's pale, rigid expression. "Leave us," the sheikh barked, his voice shaking more than usual. The advisors exchanged uneasy glances. They hesitated, then stepped back, but not before Elias's next words cut through the air. "Send them away if you like," Elias said, his tone icy. "But soon, the whole world will know. This won't stay buried in your palace walls." The advisors froze at the doorway. A scandal, the very word hung unspoken, but its shadow filled the hall. Amina gasped, covering her chest where the necklace still glimmered. Her voice wavered. "Elias, you wouldn't—" Elias turned to her, his face torn between anger and sorrow. "Wouldn't I? My mother begged for justice in silence. She died protecting his name, and look what it earned her: loneliness, poverty, death." His voice cracked, then hardened again. "If he will not face his sins, then the world will make him." The sheikh slammed his fist on the table, his booming voice masking his fear. "You dare threaten me in my own house? Do you know what I can do to you?" But even as he spoke, his eyes betrayed him. For the first time, Kareem knew this boy was not powerless. A single whisper to the press, a single photo of those letters, and decades of his carefully built empire would crumble like sand in the wind. The advisors shifted uncomfortably, exchanging subtle nods. They had already heard enough to piece together the story. The scandal wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. Amina looked at her father with horror. Is this what you feared all these years? That your empire is strong in gold, but fragile in truth? The sheikh's silence was his answer. His wealth could command armies, but it could not silence the blood of his past standing before him. And Elias knew he finally had the power to bring the untouchable billionaire to his knees. The sheikh's chest heaved as he rose from his chair. For decades, his presence alone had silenced boardrooms, governments, and enemies. Yet here he stood, face to face with a boy who bore none of his power, but all of his past. Elias didn't flinch. His eyes were sharp, his stance unyielding. You built an empire on lies, he said, his voice echoing through the empty hall. You turned your back on my mother, and you thought you buried her with your silence. But here I am, the son you denied, the son you feared. Amina trembled, her hands clasping her necklace. Her voice broke into the tension. Father, say something, please. Is this true? The sheikh's mouth opened, but no sound came. He turned away, as though the walls might protect him. Yet every gilded column, every chandelier, seemed to glare at him, mocking his silence. Elias pressed harder, his voice shaking with fury. You see, I don't need your money. I don't need your name. All I wanted was the truth. And you can't even give me that, can you? The sheikh spun suddenly, his eyes burning with both anger and despair. You think I do not carry this weight every single day? His voice thundered, cracking for the first time. You think I forgot her? I see her face in my dreams. I hear her voice in my silence. I smell her perfume in empty halls. Do you know what it is to be haunted by love you destroyed with your own hands? The room fell still. Even Amina gasped at the rawness in her father's words. The sheikh's shoulders slumped. His voice dropped, heavy with guilt. I loved Layla, more than I can admit, but I was weak. I let pride and tradition chain me. I chose my name, my throne, and I lost her. And now I see her in you, boy. Her fire, her defiance, her eyes. Elias's throat tightened, his anger colliding with grief. He wanted to hate this man, but beneath the fury, the cracks of truth revealed a broken figure. Amina whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. Father, how could you? The sheikh's hand trembled as he reached for the necklace around her neck. His voice quivered. This necklace, it was hers. I gave it to her when I promised her a future. When she left, I kept it locked away. And when you were born, Amina, I placed it on you, telling myself the past was erased. But it wasn't. It never was. The necklace shimmered under the chandelier, a piece of Layla hidden in plain sight. Elias's voice, low but sharp, cut through the silence. Then admit it. Admit before your daughter, before me, who you really are. The sheikh's breath shook as he lifted his eyes. And for the first time, the great Arab billionaire bowed his head. Not to kings, not to rivals, but to his own sins. The silence was thick, broken only by the faint ticking of the gilded clock on the wall. Sheikh Kareem, the man who had once commanded empires, stood bowed beneath the weight of his own confession. His pride, his arrogance, stripped away. Elias stared at him, his chest rising and falling with raw emotion. He had forced the truth out, but truth alone wasn't enough. Justice demanded more. He stepped closer, his voice low but unyielding. You admit your sin. You admit you abandoned my mother, but words mean nothing unless you pay for what you did. Amina looked up sharply, her eyes wide with fear. Elias, what are you saying? Elias's gaze never left the sheikh. I'm saying this ends tonight. No more secrets, no more silence. You will stand before the world and acknowledge her. Acknowledge me, or I will. The sheikh's head snapped up, his eyes blazing. You would ruin me? Destroy everything I have built? Elias's reply was a dagger. You destroyed it the day you betrayed her. I'm only uncovering the rot you tried to hide. The sheikh's fists clenched. His empire, billions, estates, prestige, it all teetered on the edge of collapse. But Elias pressed further. I have my mother's diary, her letters, her truth, and I have something else. From his satchel, Elias pulled out a small recorder. He clicked it, and the device lit up with a red glow. The faint crackle of sound filled the room. Sheikh Kareem's voice, moments earlier, confessing his love for Layla, admitting his betrayal. The Sheikh's blood ran cold. Amina gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Elias's voice hardened, each word deliberate. "You think I came here with nothing?" "No. I came prepared. This recording alone is enough to end you, unless you do what I demand." The Sheikh swallowed, his powerful frame trembling. "And what is it you want?" Elias stepped closer until he was only a breath away from the man who had shaped his life from the shadows. His eyes burned with the fire of his mother's memory. "I don't want your money. I don't want your empire. I want justice. You will build a scholarship in my mother's name. You will fund education for children like me, children abandoned, silenced, forgotten. Her name will live, not as your shame, but as their hope. That is the price of your redemption." The Sheikh's breath caught. His empire of greed and gold had never heard such a demand, not for wealth, not for power, but for justice through legacy. Amina, tears streaming, whispered, "Father, this is the only way." The Sheikh looked between his daughter and the boy who carried Layla's fire in his veins, and for the first time, his wealth could not buy him out. His choice was clear. The following evening, the Sheikh's private estate glittered under chandeliers, as ministers, investors, and dignitaries gathered for a grand gala. It was meant to be another display of his unshakable power, but tonight the atmosphere carried an unfamiliar tension. Whispers filled the hall, rumors of unrest, shadows of secrets. At the center stood Sheikh Kareem, dressed in his pristine white thobe, but his face carried a heaviness that no silk could hide. By his side, Amina stood solemn, clutching her necklace, while Elias remained, in the background, silent, yet unyielding, like the living ghost of Layla. The music dimmed. The Sheikh stepped to the podium. His voice, once a weapon that commanded kings, trembled as he spoke. "Tonight, I must address not only my honored guests, but the truth itself." The murmurs hushed instantly. Every eye turned toward him. "For decades I have been celebrated as a man of success, a builder of empires. But beneath the golden glory lies a sin I can no longer bury." A gasp rippled through the hall. The advisors exchanged nervous glances. Journalists raised their pens. "I loved a woman named Layla," he continued, his voice breaking. "She was brilliant, loyal, fierce. I betrayed her love for the sake of pride, and I abandoned her when she needed me most. She bore me a son I never acknowledged, never supported, never protected. And tonight, he stands here before you." Gasps turned into shockwaves. All eyes turned toward Elias as he stepped into the light, his posture proud, his gaze unshaken. The Sheikh extended a trembling hand toward him. "This is Elias, my blood, my son, the proof of my greatest failure, and God willing, my path to redemption." The hall erupted in whispers, scandal, disbelief, outrage. But Elias's eyes narrowed. The man who once denied his mother now admitted the truth before the world. The Sheikh raised his voice above the chaos. "From this day forward, I will honor Layla's name. I will create a foundation in her memory, a scholarship for the poor, the abandoned, the forgotten. Children like Elias once was will have a chance to rise. My wealth will no longer be a monument to my pride, but a legacy of her sacrifice." Amina's tears flowed freely, her heart torn but proud. The guests sat stunned, some horrified, others moved. The mighty Sheikh had undone himself, and in doing so, he had done the one thing no one thought possible. He had chosen truth over power. Elias stepped forward, standing beside him at the podium. His voice, clear and steady, cut through the hall. "My mother's name will no longer be buried in silence. Tonight, she lives again. And so does justice." The hall fell into stunned silence, the chandelier above flickering as if even the light itself bowed to the truth. In a palace built on silence and pride, truth finally broke through the marble walls. The Arab billionaire who once thought himself untouchable was humbled by the very son he tried to erase. Elias did not come seeking wealth or power, he came seeking justice. And in his demand, he gave his mother a voice that could no longer be silenced. Her name, Layla, rose higher than palaces, brighter than gold, stronger than scandal. Amina learned that loyalty to family does not mean blindness to truth. It means having the courage to confront it. And Sheikh Kareem learned that redemption cannot be bought. It must be earned, drop by drop, with honesty and sacrifice, because in the end, wealth fades, titles crumble. But truth survives, and sometimes it takes only one voice, the voice of a boy once dismissed, to bring down walls that seemed unbreakable. And so, Layla's love lived on, not in whispers, not in shame, but in a legacy of hope.